Chapter 1: Arrival and Defiance. The universe was a vast and sprawling expanse of stars and shadowed mysteries, a cosmic ocean upon which ships drifted like fragile vessels caught in an endless dance between light and dark. Captain Elias Trent had spent most of his life navigating these treacherous waters, his freighter Starbound his steadfast companion, through nebulas thick with glowing gas and sectors where silence reigned with a solemn, almost sacred weight. He had seen wonders and horrors in equal measure, planets alive with color and life, worlds reduced to ash by war, and star systems whose borders flickered and bled under the threat of collapse. But nothing in his years behind the helm had prepared him for the moment when the universe itself delivered a singular enigma into his care. A girl unlike any he had ever encountered, wrapped in defiance and mystery, claiming with fierce certainty that she was not a possession, not a prize, not a pet, yet seeking refuge in the unlikeliest of places, his lap. She had been discovered by the ship's engineer, Maris, a sharp-eyed woman with a skepticism honed by years of dealing with stowaways, refugees, and the occasional desperate fugitive seeking passage. It was late into the ship's standard maintenance cycle when Maris first heard the soft shuffle and breathless whispers from the dim recesses of the cargo hold, a place usually silent save for the hum of refrigeration units and the occasional creak of settling metal. When she approached, the faint shimmer of pale violet skin caught her eye, a figure curled small against the cold floor. Her garments were nothing like any known human fabric, woven from fibers that flickered faintly with iridescent hues as though alive with their own breath. Her hair cascaded around her face in waves of liquid silver, catching the light in a way that made it seem otherworldly, ethereal. But it was her eyes that held Maris and later Elias in a grip of disbelief and awe. Enormous, luminous pools that seemed to contain galaxies, shifting constellations, and unspoken histories that spoke of eons far beyond human reckoning. The girl's voice was the first true sound Elias heard from her. Soft, almost musical, yet carrying the weight of defiance and unyielding pride. "I'm not your pet," she said, eyes flashing with the challenge of someone who had been underestimated too many times. She spoke the galactic common tongue with a clarity that belied her years, or perhaps because of them. Her words were not a plea, nor a demand, but a statement of unshakable identity. Elias, who had dealt with countless personalities and demands from the reckless and the desperate, found himself disarmed by the complexity of her presence. Here was a being who refused to be defined by circumstance, whose very essence screamed autonomy even as she was caught in a web of unknown chains. For days, she resisted the confinement of the ship's guest quarters, pacing the small room like a caged predator, eyes scanning, muscles taut with restless energy. She refused food and rest, her every gesture an assertion of freedom even when tethered by circumstance. The crew, initially wary and suspicious, gradually found themselves drawn to her contradictions, her fierce independence matched by moments of vulnerability that hinted at a past full of pain and loss. Maris took it upon herself to learn what she could, probing gently with questions and shared stories of survival, hoping to bridge the chasm between human and alien. It was a delicate dance of trust, mistrust, and fragile hope. Yet the defining moment came not in confrontation, but in an unexpected act of surrender. Elias had spent countless hours in the ship's control room, poring over star charts and cargo manifests, when the girl approached quietly. Without a word, she stepped beside him, her presence a silent storm. Then, as if relinquishing the last of her defenses, she curled up in his lap, gesture laden with meanings deeper than words. It was neither submission nor ownership, but a quiet claim of trust, fragile and fierce, a recognition that in the vast loneliness of space, connection could be the most radical act of rebellion. Elias felt the weight of her small body and the intensity of her gaze as it met his own, and in that moment, everything changed. The girl who said she was not a pet was no longer just a stowaway or a mystery. She was a catalyst for something far greater than either of them could yet understand. Their journey together, through the sprawling galaxies and the hidden corridors of power and peril, was only beginning. The alien girl with the shimmering skin and cosmic eyes was not merely a passenger, but a key to secrets buried in the stars, to truths humanity had long forgotten, into a bond that would challenge everything Elias thought he knew about freedom, loyalty, and love. The Starbound sailed on, carrying with it the fragile hope of two souls entwined by fate, defiance, and the unspoken promise of redemption in a universe too vast to be conquered alone. In the vast, uncharted depths of space, where the stars blinked like distant lanterns in an endless black sea, the freighter Starbound drifted with a calm familiarity that belied the strange turn of events about to unfold within its metallic hull. Captain Elias Trent had spent years commanding this vessel, a routine punctuated by shipments, charters, and the quiet solitude that came with life on the edge of known space. The freighter's creaking corridors and humming engines were his constant companions, the weight of command a steady pressure that grounded him even as the universe swirled in infinite complexity beyond the viewport. But the day the alien girl appeared was a day that shifted everything, an unexpected rupture in the monotony that would challenge Elias's assumptions about control, freedom, and the fragile threads of trust that bound two very different beings. She was discovered curled in the shadowed recesses of the cargo bay, a small figure whose presence was first noticed by Maris, the ship's engineer, during a routine systems check. At first, she seemed like a flicker of light caught in the gloom, a shimmer of violet skin and silver hair barely visible among the crates and humming machines. Her large, luminescent eyes reflected a galaxy of emotions, fierce and guarded, and when Maris finally coaxed her into the open, the girl's voice was clear, unwavering. "I'm not your pet." Those words echoed through the cramped space like a declaration of independence carved from years of hardship and defiance. She spoke Galactic Common with surprising fluency, though her accent hinted at distant worlds and forgotten customs. There was a fire in her that refused to be tamed, a spirit that bristled at the very notion of ownership or submission. Elias, initially wary of the unexpected stowaway, found himself captivated not only by her striking otherworldliness, but by the strength of her will. The alien girl was not meek or frightened. She was fierce, and every interaction with her was a battle of wills tempered by an unspoken need for understanding. She resisted the cramped guest quarters with a restless energy that made the ship feel smaller, her movements sharp and graceful, like a predator confined. Yet beneath that veneer of defiance lay glimpses of vulnerability, a flicker of loneliness in her eyes, a hesitation in her posture when the ship's hum fell silent. The crew, from Maris to the youngest deckhand, found themselves drawn into the complex web of her story, sensing that beneath the surface was a history of loss, survival, and a desperate search for belonging. Days passed with uneasy routines. The alien girl refused food at times, choosing instead to trace the constellations across the viewport, her gaze distant, as if recalling stars no longer reachable. She tested boundaries, challenged authority, and yet sought moments of quiet companionship, often finding herself near Elias in the dim light of the bridge or the warmth of the common room. Their conversations were cautious at first, words traded carefully as both guarded secrets, but gradually a fragile rapport blossomed. Elias learned fragments of her past, a world torn apart by war, a people scattered across the stars, and a journey that ended in escape and exile. She was neither a prisoner nor a prize. She was a survivor, carrying the weight of a civilization's fall and the hope of a future unwritten. The defining moment came unexpectedly on a quiet evening. Elias sat alone in the ship's observation lounge, the stars spilling like spilled silver across the void beyond the glass. The alien girl approached silently, her footsteps soft against the metal floor. Without a word, she settled into his lap, an act both intimate and defiant, a surrender not of will but of trust. Elias felt the warmth of her presence, the steady rhythm of her breathing, and the unspoken acceptance that in this vast and indifferent cosmos, connection was a rare and precious thing. The girl who had declared she was not a pet had chosen, in that moment, to claim a place beside him, not as property, but as an equal, a companion bound by choice and circumstance. From that night onward, their lives became intertwined in ways neither could have anticipated. Together they navigated the perils of space, the complexities of trust, and the mysteries of a universe that was as vast as it was unforgiving. The alien girl was no longer just a passenger or a stowaway. She was a catalyst for change, a beacon of defiance and hope that would challenge the boundaries of their worlds and hearts alike. And as the Starbound sailed onward into the endless night, Elias knew that their journey was only beginning. Chapter 2. The Fragile Threads of Trust. The days aboard the Starbound stretched on with a rhythm both familiar and painfully new, each moment layered with the fragile and volatile presence of the alien girl who had claimed a place at Captain Elias Trent's side, not by force, but by quiet, stubborn choice. The vast emptiness of space beyond the ship's hull was a cold reminder of their isolation, a void that seemed to press in against the warmth of the small community aboard. Yet within this confined metal sanctuary, something rare and delicate began to take root, a complex dance of mistrust and tentative understanding, woven from shared silences, guarded glances, and the softest of touches. Elias found himself navigating not only the stars but the intricate, uncharted territory of her fractured soul and his own yearning for connection. She was a creature of contradictions, fierce and vulnerable, proud and fragile, distant and achingly close. Though she insisted she was no one's possession, the undeniable truth was that her survival depended on the crew's mercy, and in turn, the crew found themselves bound to her by invisible threads of empathy and curiosity. Maris, the engineer who had first discovered her, often watched from the shadows with a mixture of skepticism and wonder, noting how the girl's eyes flickered with intelligence and pain beyond the reach of words. The alien's refusal to submit to confinement was not mere rebellion, but a shield against a past carved from loss and betrayal, a history painted in blood and silence on the canvases of forgotten worlds. Each refusal to eat, to rest, to speak of herself, was a fortress erected against the intrusion of those who sought to claim her story. Yet, despite the walls she built, the alien girl was irresistibly human in her contradictions. At times, Elias would find her staring out into the abyss of space, her eyes reflecting nebulae and stars that seemed to call to a home lost to time and circumstance. Other times, she would trace her fingers along the cold metal rails of the ship's corridors as if memorizing their shape, a silent acknowledgement of the vessel's fragility and his own. When the crew gathered in the common room huddled against the hum of the ship and the uncertainty of the next jump, she remained apart, a shadow in the corner. Yet her presence was as tangible as the low light that flickered over them all. It was in these moments, where silence spoke louder than words, that Elias sensed the depth of her isolation and the yearning for something beyond survival, the desperate need to belong, even if it was in defiance. Their conversations were few and fraught with difficulty, a fragile bridge built on broken trust and halting words. The alien girl, who called herself Leora, revealed fragments of her past and glimpses images that flooded Elias's mind in moments of unguarded connection. A homeworld devastated by war, families torn apart by ideologies that had no place in the vastness of space, and a journey that had ended with escape and exile. Her voice, when it softened, carried the weight of centuries of loss and the brittle hope that somewhere, beyond the cold stars, there might be sanctuary. Elias listened, not as a commander, but as a man touched by the raw edges of her story, feeling the fragile threads of trust beginning to weave between them. But trust was a currency earned through actions as much as words. Leora's defiance was not merely resistance to captivity, but a test of those around her. She challenged Elias's decisions, questioned the motives of the crew, and often retreated into herself when confronted with kindness she was unaccustomed to. Yet in moments when the ship lurched through a meteor storm or the threat of pirates loomed near, she fought with a ferocity and skill that stunned even the seasoned crew, revealing a warrior tempered by hardship and survival instincts honed beyond human experience. Elias began to understand that beneath her alien exterior was a soul shaped by battles, both external and internal, a complexity that demanded patience, respect, and an unwavering commitment to her autonomy. The turning point came unexpectedly during a routine jump through a volatile sector of space known for its unpredictable gravitational waves. The ship shuddered violently, alarms blaring as systems faltered, and the crew scrambled to maintain control. In the chaos, Leora appeared at Elias's side, steady and focused, her presence a calm amidst the storm. Without hesitation, She offered insights into the ship's alien technology that Elias could barely comprehend, her hands moving with practiced precision over control panels that had once been mysteries. Together, they stabilized the freighter, navigating the perilous currents with a synchronicity that surprised even the most skeptical crew members. In that moment of shared crisis, the fragile walls between them cracked, and Leora allowed herself to curl into Elias's lap, seeking not submission, but solace, a silent acknowledgement that in this vast and uncaring universe, connection was a sanctuary. From that day forward, the dynamic aboard the Starbound shifted subtly but irrevocably. Leora's guarded defiance softened into moments of vulnerability and trust, woven through the daily rhythms of space travel, shared meals, and whispered conversations beneath the stars. Elias found himself opening not only his quarters but his heart, discovering in her presence a mirror for his own fears and hopes. The alien girl who had declared she was no one's pet had become a companion bound not by chains but by choice, their lives entwined in a delicate balance of power, respect, and the quiet yearning for belonging. Yet, beyond the immediate cocoon of the ship, darker forces stirred. Leora's past was not easily escaped, and the secrets she carried were threads in a web that stretched across galaxies and centuries. The Starbound's journey through the stars would soon intersect with destinies that challenged the very fabric of freedom and control, where loyalty was tested and the cost of trust weighed in lives. For now, though, in the soft glow of the ship's night lights and the vast silence of space, Elias and Leora navigated the fragile beginnings of a bond that promised both salvation and storm. Chapter 3: The Unseen Chains and Hidden Bonds. The universe is a tapestry woven from countless threads of light and shadow, from the silent echoes of ancient civilizations to the vibrant pulse of new life struggling to find its place among the stars. For Elias Trent and Leora, the alien girl who had fiercely declared she was not a pet before surrendering to the quiet trust of his lap, their journey through this vast cosmic fabric was growing ever more complex, colored by revelations that threatened to unravel their fragile sanctuary aboard the Starbound and challenge everything they thought they knew about freedom, identity, and connection. The ship itself, a modest freighter forged of human hands but now shared with a being from a far-flung world, became a crucible for transformation, a floating fragment of hope adrift in the endless void. Leora's story was beginning to unfold, piece by reluctant piece, not as a linear narrative, but as a fractal of memories, emotions, and truths tangled in a web of cultural conflict and personal pain. She had come from a planet where the social order was rigid and unforgiving, where beings were often defined by their roles in servitude or dominance, and where the concept of autonomy was a luxury few could afford. Her people, the Virati, had been caught in the crossfire of a devastating interstellar conflict, a war that had reduced entire star systems to ash and left survivors scattered like fallen leaves. Leora herself had been bred and trained as a companion in a system where the lines between love, ownership, and survival were dangerously blurred. She had escaped, a fugitive not just from captors but from the very identity imposed upon her, seeking refuge among the stars and, eventually, aboard Elias's ship. Elias listened, not just with ears but with the full weight of his heart and mind, as Leora's memories flowed through him in vivid waves, visions of gleaming towers, harsh command voices, and the suffocating grip of control disguised as care. She spoke of the pain of being seen as property, of her fierce rebellion against a destiny that sought to bind her spirit, and of the lonely flight into the unknown that had led her to his ship. Yet amidst the darkness were glimpses of hope, moments of genuine affection, acts of kindness hidden beneath the veneer of control, and the enduring desire for freedom that had fueled her escape. Elias, a man shaped by his own scars and battles, recognized in her story echoes of his own struggles with trust and power, and a shared yearning to redefine what it meant to belong. Their relationship deepened in the crucible of space's solitude, a slow and careful weaving of trust that defied the barriers of language and culture. Elias found himself not as a master or captor, but as a companion navigating the delicate balance of respect and care. They shared quiet moments beneath the glow of distant nebulae, exchanged stories and silences that spoke louder than words, and found solace in the simple act of presence. Leora's defiance remained a shield and a promise, but it softened in the warmth of shared vulnerability. She began to reveal facets of herself previously hidden, a playful spark in her laughter, a fierce loyalty to those she trusted, and an unyielding spirit that challenged Elias to see beyond appearances and expectations. Yet, their fragile sanctuary was threatened by forces unseen and far-reaching. The remnants of the Virati power structures hunted relentlessly, their agents scattered across the galaxy, seeking to reclaim what they deemed theirs by right. Leora's loyalty embodied. These mercenaries were not mere bounty hunters, but emissaries of a culture steeped in ancient traditions and ruthless pragmatism, wielding technology and tactics that blurred the lines between diplomacy and warfare. The Starbound found itself a target, shadowed by silent predators who stalked the void with cold efficiency. Elias and his crew, unprepared for such a relentless pursuit, had to adapt quickly, blending human ingenuity with Leora's knowledge of her people's tactics to stay one step ahead. The psychological toll was profound. Leora's past traumas resurfaced in moments of fear and flashbacks, fracturing the fragile peace aboard the ship. Elias struggled to support her, navigating the complexities of healing and trauma while confronting his own fears of loss and failure. Their bond was tested in the crucible of relentless danger, but it also grew stronger, forged in the fire of shared adversity and mutual respect. The ship became more than a vessel. It was a refuge, a home, and a battlefield where the unseen chains of the past were challenged and, slowly, broken. As they navigated these turbulent waters, revelations about the broader political and cultural landscape emerged. The Virati were not merely a distant alien race, but a civilization entangled in galactic webs of power, influence, and ancient grudges. Their pursuit of Leora was part of larger machinations involving rival factions, interstellar corporations, and shadowy councils that shaped the fate of many worlds. Elias and Leora realized their struggle was but a thread in a vast and complex tapestry of conflict and survival. Their journey would require alliances forged in trust and courage, sacrifices beyond measure, and a deep understanding of the fine line between freedom and captivity. Through it all, Leora's defiant proclamation "I'm not your pet," remained a beacon and a challenge, a reminder that identity was not given but claimed, and that the journey to selfhood was as vast and complex as the universe itself. And when she curled into Elias's lap, it was not a gesture of surrender but of profound trust, a quiet revolution against the chains that sought to bind her, and a promise that together they would face the stars free, unyielding, and intertwined. Chapter 4. Embrace of the Infinite Night. The endless void stretched before them like an ancient canvas, painted in hues of distant stars and nebulae that shimmered with secrets older than time itself. Captain Elias Trent sat quietly on the worn command chair of the Starbound, his eyes tracing the patterns of light that pulsed faintly through the viewports, each flicker a reminder of the immense loneliness and wonder that space held. Beside him, curled gently into his lap, was Leora, the alien girl who had declared herself no one's pet, yet chose to rest there, in the fragile cradle of shared trust and quiet rebellion. Their journey had led them across the dark tapestry of the galaxy, through perils both external and internal, and now, at the edge of known reality, they faced the precipice of a fate neither had foreseen. Theirs was a story woven of defiance and surrender, of freedom grasped and shadows faced, and in this suspended moment, the boundaries between human and alien, master and companion, lover and friend, dissolved into something far greater than either could name. The ship around them hummed softly with the gentle pulse of its engines, a fragile lifeline against the crushing silence of the cosmos. The Starbound was no longer merely a vessel but a sanctuary, a fragile world held together by steel and hope, carrying within it the fragile flame of a bond forged in fire and shadow. Elias could feel the warmth of Leora's breathing against his chest, the rise and fall of her form a rhythm that echoed the steady beat of his own heart. She was a creature of contradictions, a fierce spirit who resisted captivity with every fiber of her being, yet in moments like this, She sought refuge in the quiet safety of his presence. It was a trust born not of possession but of mutual need, a silent pact made in the face of the infinite night. Their journey had changed them both irrevocably, pulling them from isolation into a shared vulnerability that transcended species and circumstance. Leora's eyes, pools of shimmering galaxies, lifted slowly to meet his gaze. In them danced the reflections of distant worlds and forgotten dreams, of histories scarred by loss and hope intertwined like the strands of a cosmic web. Her voice, when it came, was a whisper woven from stardust and defiance. "I am not your pet, Elias," she said, the words carrying the weight of every battle fought and every chain broken. "But I am yours only because I choose to be." Those words hung between them, fragile yet unbreakable, a declaration of autonomy that transformed the space they shared into something sacred. Elias reached down, his fingers tracing a gentle path along her hair, grounding them both in a moment that felt timeless amidst the ceaseless march of stars. Beyond the sanctuary of the ship, the galaxy roared with turmoil and wonder. Their journey had not been a simple passage through space, but a descent into the heart of conflict and revelation. The forces that had scattered Leora's people, the Virati, still lurked in the shadows of star systems, hunting relics of a past they sought to control or destroy. Elias had become not just her protector, but a reluctant warrior drawn into a larger struggle that entwined the fate of galaxies. Alongside unexpected allies, rebels, exiles, and seekers of freedom, they navigated the tangled web of politics and power, each step fraught with danger and the promise of salvation. The bonds forged in battle had tempered their resolve, but the scars they carried were reminders that freedom exacted a heavy price. As the Starbound approached the edge of a newly charted sector, a nebula of swirling gases and ancient light, the crew prepared for the unknown. The nebula was rumored to be a nexus of cosmic energies, a place where the veil between dimensions thinned and reality shimmered on the brink of transformation. For Elias and Leora, it was more than a waypoint. It was a threshold into a deeper understanding of their intertwined destinies. The ship's sensors flickered with anomalous readings, and the very fabric of space seemed to pulse with a rhythm that resonated with Leora's own biology. She moved through the corridors with a grace born of starborn heritage, her senses attuned to the subtle shifts in energy that danced like whispers through the ship's hull. In the quiet moments before the nebula's embrace, Elias and Leora spoke of futures and fears, of what had been lost and what might still be found. Their conversations wove through memories of homeworlds shattered and dreams reborn, tracing a tapestry of hope and resilience. Elias shared stories of Earth's struggles, of humanity's own battles for freedom and identity, and Leora spoke of the Virati's ancient traditions, their fall, and the fragile threads that still bound her to a people scattered like stardust across the cosmos. Through these shared tales, the barriers between them softened, revealing a connection that transcended biology and history, a bond forged in choice and nurtured by understanding. The nebula welcomed them like an old friend and a dangerous adversary, its swirling mists enveloping the Starbound in a dance of light and shadow. The ship's systems struggled against the electromagnetic turbulence, and the crew braced against the disorienting pull of the cosmic tides. Amid the chaos, Elias and Leora found solace in each other's presence, their shared heartbeat a steady anchor in the swirling maelstrom. The nebula's secrets unfolded slowly, revealing glimpses of ancient ruins suspended in space, echoes of civilizations long vanished, but not forgotten. It was here that Leora's knowledge became a beacon, guiding them through the shifting maze of energies and spectral echoes. Yet the nebula was also a crucible of challenge. Forces long dormant stirred in the depths, sentinels of forgotten epochs, guardians of cosmic balance who viewed the arrival of the Starbound and its occupants as a disruption to the delicate harmony. These entities tested the limits of Elias and Leora's resolve, manifesting as storms of energy and apparitions woven from light and memory. Each trial was a crucible, demanding not only courage but the weaving of trust and unity between human and alien, captain and companion. Through shared struggle, their bond deepened, becoming a tapestry of light, that shimmered even in the face of cosmic darkness. As the Starbound emerged from the nebula's embrace, the galaxy spread before them anew, a realm of endless possibility and peril. Elias knew their journey was far from over. The universe was vast, filled with wonders and dangers that would challenge the limits of their strength and the depths of their hearts. But in the quiet glow of the ship's bridge, with Leora curled softly against him, he felt a profound certainty. They would face whatever came together, unbound by chains, united by choice, and guided by a love that transcended stars. The endless expanse of space outside the Starbound was a vast and indifferent canvas, but inside the ship, something extraordinary was unfolding. Elias and Leora, once mere captain and stowaway, had become partners in a journey far beyond any map or mission. The universe around them was teeming with danger and mystery, old enemies lurking in dark star systems, and whispered legends of powers beyond mortal understanding. But the true battle was internal, a quiet revolution in trust and identity that transformed every moment shared in the confined metal halls of their vessel. Leora's declaration that she was not a pet had been a fierce proclamation of self, but curled in Elias's lap, it had evolved into a profound statement of choice, a testament that freedom was not just the absence of chains, but the presence of connection. They had weathered storms of doubt and defiance, navigating the treacherous currents of past traumas and present fears. Leora's past as a captive in a society that commodified her kind cast long shadows, threatening to unravel the fragile peace they had built. Yet Elias had learned that love and respect were acts of rebellion in a universe that often sought to strip both away. He had come to understand that the bonds they forged were not born of possession or ownership, but of mutual vulnerability and fierce protection. Each day together was a negotiation of boundaries, a dance of give and take, where silence spoke volumes and a touch conveyed promises deeper than words. Their ship was not just a vessel through space. It had become a vessel of healing, resilience, and hope. The Starbound's next destination was uncertain, a point on the stellar map shrouded in mystery and the promise of discovery. Yet wherever they went, they carried with them the quiet strength of their bond, a beacon that drew allies and challenged foes. Leora's unique knowledge of alien cultures and technologies complemented Elias's tactical acumen, creating a synergy that transformed the ship into a force capable of carving out a place in the vast, often hostile cosmos. Together, they faced hostile encounters, negotiated with enigmatic civilizations, and uncovered fragments of ancient histories that hinted at a universe far more interconnected and fragile than they had ever imagined. Through it all, their partnership deepened, a fusion of hearts and minds that transcended species and circumstance. In the solitude of the ship's observation deck, beneath the infinite stars, Elias often reflected on the journey that had brought them here, the initial defiance, the whispered vulnerabilities, and the moments of quiet surrender that had redefined their lives. Leora, resting in his lap, was a living testament to the power of choice and the resilience of the spirit. Her gaze, once guarded and fierce, now held a softness that spoke of healing and hope. Together, they had rewritten the narrative imposed upon them by fate and circumstance, crafting a story of empowerment and love that defied the cold expanse of space. Their revolution was quiet, intimate, and profound, a transformation that echoed beyond their ship and into the endless night. As the Starbound continued its voyage into the unknown, Elias and Leora faced the future not as captor and captive, but as equals, companions bound by trust and choice. The galaxy, vast and unpredictable, awaited them with challenges and wonders yet unseen. But in the embrace of each other's presence, they found a home, one built not from walls or worlds, but from the enduring power of connection. The alien girl who once declared she was not a pet had become a symbol of freedom's true meaning: to choose one's path, to claim one's identity, and to find strength in the embrace of another soul willing to walk beside you through the infinite night.